What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another very special review over here on Burnout Brighter. My name is Matt, and I'm going to be taking you through the world of Dying Light 2. I have played it, I have finished it, and I'll be giving you my thoughts all about the game. Now, first off, I just want to give a huge shout out to Stride PR for sending over a code for review. We appreciate it very, very much. Thank you, and you're awesome. Now, Dying Light 2, for anybody who's unawares, is the sequel to Dying Light, coming from developer Techland. The Dying Light 2 is out on PS4, PS5, Windows, Xbox One, the Xbox Series family, and they're currently working on a Nintendo Switch version as well for the cloud. So there is a lot of different places to be able to play Dying Light 2. I myself played it on PS5. It probably took me around 20 to 25 hours to finish the game, and that was a lot of side quests at the beginning and then a lot of mainlining as I went. And that's for a few different reasons. Now, in terms of kind of overall thoughts about the game, Dying Light 2 is okay. There is some really great moments, there are some really not great moments, and there isn't really much of a middle ground. It's either one or the other. Now, let's kind of dive into what's good about it. Now, what I enjoyed about Dying Light 2 is a lot of the movement mechanics. The parkour feels most of the time fluid. It's fun running around the city and kind of, just moving from point A to point B. It nails a lot of that Insomniac Spider-Man feel, where making traversal actually an active part of your gameplay experience, and it mostly landed. I had a really good time just feeling like a night runner in the city and kind of making my way through, hopping off of enemies, and the movement additions that they add in terms of like the paraglider and the grappling hook and stuff works to varying degrees, but largely speaking, the parkour is a lot of fun. The set pieces as well, in terms of a lot of those bigger moments, mostly land. There are some missions that I still think about. There's one in particular where you're trying to hold down basically your base, and there are a number of snipers, shooters, and missile and enemies with rocket launchers and a bunch of buildings around, and you have to kind of quickly parkour to each one, make your way all the way up there, and take out enemies as they're kind of raining down hellfire onto the place that you're calling your base. Now, those moments work. They're big, they're bombastic, they're a lot of fun. Combat too, when it clicks and when everything feels good, is a good time. It's a very tactile and versatile feeling. It's first person, so you're really kind of up in their faces as you're swinging away with a variety of different weapons that you can modify and change. Now, I enjoyed some of the characters. Some of the writing was decent. The main story itself, while there are lots of choices that you can make along the way, the choices don't feel ultimately that meaningful. They do kind of end up feeling like they don't change the game all that much. Certain characters might not be there or be there, but in terms of the kind of grand scheme of things, there isn't a ton you can do. There are some cool choices along the way, but I felt those were kind of far and few in between. Now, in terms of what's just okay about Now, the other thing that's really great about Dying Light 2 is the graphics. Playing on PS5, it looked beautiful. There were moments where just you're running across the roofs of these buildings and leaping off, pulling out your paraglider, and the sun setting, it looks gorgeous. I had some performance issues, especially in the main city, in the second area of the game. In the downtown core, the frame rate does drop heavily. There are some big frame drops in that area, but that was the only time I really had that issue. So just be aware that can be a problem in certain spaces of the game. Now, in terms of the not so good, the story itself is ultimately pretty forgettable. The villain is just kind of there and comes across more like mustache twirling evil than, and the depth that they try to add to him just kind of comes too late and doesn't ultimately feel that impactful. The writing of a lot of the characters almost feels kind of too edgy for me. There's a lot of swearing, which isn't usually an issue for me, but it just feels forced and out of place, along with some of the way that the characters joke and the way that the characters interact with each other. It's just it feels like me in high school wrote some of the dialogue, and it can be really, really cringy at moments. When it does click and you're actually kind of getting to know some of the characters, it's okay. But largely speaking, I wasn't a big fan of the writing itself. And one of the absolute most frustrating things that Dying Light 2 does is that when you die, the equipment and items that you use do not replicate. They do not respawn. If you use 3 med kits trying to do something and you die, when you respawn, those med kits are gone. Those resources are gone. So in certain situations, especially towards mid to late game where you're fighting a lot of enemies at once and you lose those resources, it just becomes this really frustrating puzzle game almost, where you're trying to make sense of a situation and you have none of the resources that you had coming into it the first time around. That really, really bothered me. You should be able to, go at different situations in different ways and experiment with the items that you have instead of them being just gone forever. When you use them once, especially when you die, it gets really, really frustrating. There's also just like a number of skills that I felt should have been inherently part of the game. In a parkour game, it's kind of wild that a slide is like a mid-game unlock. Like, that should be just inherently part of your mood set. So I feel like there are certain parts of the skill tree that should have just been part of the experience rather than you having to work to get there. Modifying them and making them better is one thing, but it can be really frustrating when you're just trying to actively move around and it almost feels like you're being hampered by the fact that you're choosing to upgrade in certain directions. So that's something that I didn't enjoy as much. Along with, there were a lot of technical issues with the game even still. Now, I finished it about 2 months after the game has come out. There's been a number of patches that have made the experience better. And as of recording, there's a big New Game Plus mode that is also just coming out to kind of help you fix some of those problems. But in terms of my playthrough, I had to repeat 15 to 20 to 30 minute sections because I would finally get to the character that I was supposed to get to, and I just couldn't interact with them. In one specific moment, it just kind of said that, there's enemies nearby when there was nobody remotely close to anywhere that we were. And fast traveling didn't fix it. Running around the area, entering and exiting, it took me fast traveling somewhere and sleeping. That kind of reset the counter. But again, the fast travel system, there aren't a ton of points that you can fast travel to. So it ultimately ended up meaning that I was just kind of running all the way back. And sometimes it took multiple attempts for this to actually get through and for it to work. Especially towards the end of the game as well, there isn't a ton of enemy variety. You kind of have like your zombies, your monsters, and then a couple variations of that alongside. Same with the human side. And especially towards the end of the game, the game does the very old school design feel of just throwing a ton of enemies at you. And when you're facing quite literally 15 to 20 enemies at once by yourself, it can get incredibly overwhelming, and it just doesn't feel fun. It doesn't feel fair. Like, you're just getting clobbered from all over the place. The archers especially deal a ton of damage. They seem to have like no misses. There's not a lot of balancing there, and hopefully that's been fixed in the latest patches. But that was an issue for me that really hampered my experience, because I would say like the first half of this game I was really enjoying myself. I was having a really good time. And then it just kind of went downhill the longer I played. A lot of the side content ultimately doesn't feel very meaningful whatsoever, and a lot of it is very, fetch questy. Just go grab the thing and bring it back. Some decisions, interspersed throughout, but again, nothing that felt ultimately that meaningful. My time with Dying Light 2 is overall, I think it's fine. I would not recommend buying this game at full price at this point. It really is a wait for sale for me. I don't regret playing it. I enjoyed my experience with it, but I can see why some people would get turned off of it. I can understand why some people would love it. For me, ultimately, it was just okay. So check it out if you're interested. I would tell you to buy it on sale. It's on sale right now, so make sure you go check that out. Once again, a huge shout out to Stride PR for sending over a review code. I appreciate it very, very much. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We will see you on the next one. Peace out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Do all the things. We have so much awesome content, so stick around and find out. Thanks for watching. Peace out.